I think it's hopeless to meet people in 2026 because no matter how many people you meet, no matter how many people you message, no matter how many events you go to, no matter how many mixes you go to, no matter how many clubs you attend, again and again, it's so easy to feel like no one really connects to you, no one really understands you, no one really even cares to reach out to you. You can go to all these places again and again, but in actuality, it can feel so tiring because even though you're trying to meet people, even though you're almost desperate to like have a community, like no one is really that interested in you, and because of that, it feels impossible to even meet people. Not meeting people and talking to them, but it feels impossible to surround yourself with people that really care for you and really are curious about you. I think that's the issue. The fact that you may meet 100 people a day, that's an exaggeration, but you can meet 100 people over the course of a month, but how many of those 100 people are actually curious about you? I think that's a question is that should be more thought of too, and that's a question that I think most people should be mindful of. I was talking to my friend who recently started working at a agency, kind of as a consultant, but as a whole, he works really, really intense hours, and the environment is like just intense. Monday to Saturday, 6 days a week, working full time, and it's just so tiring. Every day you either wake up early, every day you get back late, and you don't even get paid that well. And I think like that's the reality that many people live, just under conditions that aren't the most comfortable, aren't the most familiar, and it's tiring, right? And you want to meet people, you want to have communities, but it's so hard to meet communities because in those moments, like I'm barely even afloat, I'm barely even surviving. Every day, I feel like I just gotta get through it, and the next day comes, and every single day that passes, like I just feel worse and worse because, or you just feel worse and worse because I just feel like I'm wasting my time and going nowhere. And even though I could be saving time and money, I just feel like the amount of money I'm saving is like honestly minuscule in the long term, and I just don't really see a future, and I don't see really a point of all the things I'm doing because like what is it all for? And I think that's a reality that many people face, and I think it's so unfair and so challenging. um, and then when I think about myself and how to meet people, it's like I think because there's so many people that are living under such constricted environments that are not the most comfortable, it's so hard to even have the mental bandwidth, the energy, and the space to even care and be curious about new people. I think it's when you're younger, like when you're not under so much pressure and stress, it's a lot easier to meet people. Not just because proximity wise, yes, like you could be in college, yes, you could be in high school where you have to see people every day. Then that helps a lot. Don't get me wrong, right? But it's also so important to realize that people only have so much, like an individual only has so much capacity in their head. An individual can only be able to process, make a certain amount of decisions a day, and only think and ponder for such a limited amount of time. Not like that's wrong or per se, or not like people should continue to push those limits, but it is true. Like people have mental limits, and there's only so much that you can do, um, because you're ultimately human. But because of that, it's so hard to meet people because in actuality, how many people have both the curiosity and the energy to be able to meet new people, right? I think one thing I got obsessed with when I was growing up is like, oh, like I should just cold approach people on the street, right? Maybe then I'll have friends. And what's funny is like when I first entered my first year of college, like I remember, oh, this is like the most or lost moment, but I remember talking to a couple of my like mutual friends I knew, and I literally asked them, how do I make friends? Like, how do you make friends? Like, how do you make it? And they looked at me like their eyes twitched, and they like, oh, it was like the worst moment. Not the worst moment, but like I actually lost aura in that moment. One thing I think about that moment is that I think when I was younger and when a lot of people are younger, like people have so much curiosity and so much space to get to know people, even if you guys aren't like fundamentally compatible. And as you do get further and as you do kind of solidify your own values, like your space and your curiosity becomes so much more narrow. Because like just as I have and like just as I have lost curiosity for other people, I'm sure other people have lost curiosity about certain individuals as well. Not because they despise them or they just don't like them or they're annoying to them or some negative reason, but maybe because they're just so different and the amount of overlap just becomes more and more narrow. And the overlap that I'm talking about is just like what they're passionate about. People have different passions. And because of that, it's so hard to meet people. I think the same can be said for people that work remote too. If you have a place that's a lot, if you work a role or you do work that is a lot more free, a lot more flexible, you can say like, oh, like you can meet so many more people, and that is true, right? Let's say like you work fully remote, and you're able to travel the world and meet a ton of people. That is a great privilege to have. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's also important to realize that so much of their life can't be shared with many other people, and the same feelings that they have at work, both the good ones and bad ones, can't really be shared with that many people, right? In the sense that like when you work with other people remotely all the time, whether it's doing content, whether it's working something digitally, or whether it's working remotely in tech, or whether it's consulting on certain groups, I don't know, but when you do work remotely for long periods of time, like how many how many of your friends can really understand what you're going through unless you hang out with them every day, unless they're your roommate and you yap to them and you complain every single night how happy you feel or how bad you feel. How many of them in actuality can you actually have can actually understand you in the full context? I think that's a hard thing that is easy to go over and it's really easy to overlook, but it is in actuality that many people face, like being doing work that isn't easily relatable can feel extremely lonely. I think one thing I want to reference is that like I feel like I've gone through many times in my life where like I felt super lonely. Many times I've traveled to the new city. Like I've gone to like LA when I was in college, and I've moved to California and SF. I love California, but I've moved to these areas completely new. And one thing I do want to realize then is that I was full of curiosity to meet new people. Yes, I lost a ton of aura. Yes, it was like I've had some extremely low moments, but also because like I think one thing that's really important to remember is that um, curiosity is the basis of all friendships. Like you can go meet many people, you can go talk to many people, you can go message many people, but I think one thing that's important to wonder is, are you messaging them, or are you reaching out to people, or are you talking to people because you're curious about who they are, or simply the fact that you're afraid of having no one to talk to? I do the same thing at events. When I'm at an event and I'm alone, or the person I'm with or the group I'm with is talking to someone else, I get nervous and I just have some like chit chat with someone next to me. But usually I just want to leave the conversation. I have no interest in curiosity, but I'm just afraid of having no one to talk to. And I know like that's and the same thing happens in many different occurrences. Same thing with like if you move to a new city, like you text a bunch of people that you might not be super tight with, or you DM people that you don't really know that might live in the city simply because you want to connect. And that's not wrong. And I think everyone should do that. But I think it's important to like take a step back sometimes and think, am I doing this simply because I'm scared, or simply because I know it's hard and I want to find other people that are also like, and I want to find other people that are also sharing the same struggles of finding people in a new space. Um, I think the basis of connection in a community is simply shared feelings, right? When you have, whether it's shared feelings of extreme joy, extreme sorrow, or extreme trauma, I don't know. Not like I'm saying people should be traumatized, but when you have overlapping feelings that are really strong, it's so much easier to connect with people, and it's so much easier to understand people because you know you've both gone through it, right? And because of that, like to see your eyes light up and to see their eyes light up, it's such a great feeling to see. Yeah, just being able to have a bunch of feelings that like you know other people can understand you on without needing to like articulate step by step. Not because you can't articulate, but because like knowing that some people just get you is such a nice feeling. I think that's why it's so easy to fundamentally feel lonely, because when you're surrounded by so many people that logically make sense for why you shouldn't feel lonely, it feels even lonelier because how come surrounded in a city, or surrounded by an environment, or surrounded by communities that I'm somewhat familiar with, I feel so lost and alone? I think that contrast like further emphasizes why I think that contrast further emphasizes why it's so hard to be alone, and it's so challenging when you aren't feeling like you are heard. I think for anyone that feels similar experiences, or for anyone that does feel really stressed by not having people they're surrounded by, or they're surrounded by so many people, but in those moments they feel the most alone, I think it's so important just to take a step back. I said this before, but once again, like take a step back and understand like why are you acting the way you are, right? Is it because you're curious or because you're scared? And I think for most people it's because you're scared. And even though it sucks to be scared, like it's okay because so many other people also feel scared. And not like you're acting wrong for trying to meet people, but instead of feeling desperate and clawing your way at community or connection, maybe take a step back and think, oh, like, why do I feel the way I do? And why do I act the way I do? And maybe in some way you'll have some sort of peace when you do navigate new friendships and new connections. And you could look at them and be like, oh, I act this way because of this reason, right? And I share these similar experiences. And then from then, you guys can hopefully connect. This isn't a magical like guideline of how I found friends. This isn't like a magical experience that I like follow with a playbook. But I think because I felt lonely in the past, I know other people have also felt lonely. I know people like us exist, right? And there's not much we can do. So many people online say, "Oh, just do this, put yourself out there," and they're right. But just because they're right doesn't mean that your feelings of being afraid or your feelings of being hesitant to connect with other people or your distrust that's inherently built in your bones is wrong too. I think in these moments, it's important to look back and acknowledge the fact that it's okay to feel this way and it's okay to act the way you do, right? You're not wrong. You're simply built different. And I think in these moments, like, it's important to find other people that are also built different because if you exist, other people like you also exist out there, right? Instead of finding time and forcing your way through on how you can act different, look and believe that there are other people that also want the same thing. And they're out there waiting for you to find. They're waiting for you to discover and they're waiting for you to connect them to, just in the same way as you're waiting for them. But put yourself out there as well. I think it's a mixture of different things to do. But it's not a one path way to success. Some people connect really well directly and some people don't, and that's okay.